I'm Greg Jarrett. You're in the strategy room. It's an all-out battle between two of the top GOP candidates. Texas Senator Ted Cruz launching one of his toughest attacks yet against rival Donald Trump on Monday night. Take a listen.
Donald did an interview where he described that he thinks he's bigger than Ronald Reagan. I think the American people will make that determination. Ronald Reagan was a voice of consistency, and I'm pretty sure that Ronald Reagan didn't write checks and support Democratic politicians like Andrew Cuomo, like Anthony Weiner, like Hillary Clinton.
Well, the jabs come with a little more than a week to go until Iowa voters head to the polls for the first time this election season. So what do their supporters really think of this feud? Joining us now, political analysis, David Mercer and Brad Blakeman in D.C. Gentlemen, good to see you both. So, David, are these 2016 heavyweights taking a big, extraordinary risk in taking on one another, or is that good and healthy?
Well, I think it's a matter of what do I have to lose in the case of Ted Cruz. Either I win Iowa and go on in this process, or I end up on the heap that, several other GOP opponents of his have ended up on and be out of the race. So he's throwing everything at it. And we're seeing what we've seen typical here in Washington of Ted Cruz, which is Ted Cruz is for Ted Cruz. And he was palling up.
Well, you can say that about
Donald
any
Trump.
Politician. Come on.
Well,
they're all for themselves, aren't they? A cynical view
but
might be.
Not to the venom or with the venom that Ted Cruz has been, calling his leader a liar, bucking the system against the leadership and so forth. And here he is having palled around with Ted Cruz, with Donald Trump. Now he's going on the attack.
Yeah.
Why? Because we're now coming close to the caucus and voters decide late. So he's trying to make the distinction between him and
Let me throw up on the screen the latest Real Clear Politics poll average for Iowa. Now, this is just for Iowa. Dead heat. Trump and Cruz, everybody else back down below. Rubio at 11, Carson at 8, Bush at 4.5%. Brad, what do you make of Cruz's latest strategy going after Trump? He's not really a Republican or a conservative, says Cruz. Just look at all the checks he wrote to Democrats. Just look at the other things he's endorsed over the years, including universal health care coverage. What do you make of it?
It was a long time in coming, but it has to come. This is a primary system. It's king of the hill. You want to knock off the other guy, and it is all about you. It's about you, your record, and his record or lack thereof. And by the way, I guess David didn't see the shouting match between Clinton and Bernie. That was unwatchable. The fact of the matter is you have to take on your opponent with vigor, and you have to do it factually, and you have to do it with gusto. And that's exactly what you're seeing on the Democratic side. That's exactly what you're seeing on the Republican side. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And if you want to win, you have to do it.
Well, speaking of gusto, David, I've been reading a lot about what Iowa voters are telling journalists, and there's a consistent pattern. They say that they're getting a little sick and tired of the very caustic rhetoric emanating from Donald Trump. The personal insults are getting a bit tired. Do you think in the end, a guy like Ted Cruz, who's very policy-driven, has a winning hand because of that?
Well, I think people are getting tired of it. We would all like to hear more about policy. How are you going to create more jobs? In the case of Ted Cruz, in the 4 years you've been in the Senate, what job have you created? What have you done to have wages match up with the increased productivity of workers? How are you addressing the middle class and the challenges they're facing? We don't hear that from Ted Cruz, and I think that's what the American voters are tired of, is hearing only criticism and complaints from those they elected, and no solutions are they offering on the table to make the choice and the distinction between them or their opponent.
Brad, what you see here, the top three, and we'll put that poll back up on the screen if we can, the Real Clear Politics in Iowa, the top three individuals are all outsiders, really. I mean, Trump, Cruz, Carson, not really Rubio. But, I mean, Cruz was in the Senate really for a nanosecond. What does that tell you?
Well, what it tells me right now is Iowa. And it's not a leading indicator historically as to who the nominee is going to be. The good news is that, depending who you support, is if Trump's taken down a peg in Iowa and he even loses New Hampshire or comes in second or third, then it's a whole new ballgame as we get into South Carolina. So the race isn't going to be over if Donald Trump doesn't win, because if you're not winning by his own vernacular, you're losing. So Trump has set his expectations really high, and what politicians should be doing is lowering expectations. Besting your own expectations is how you be successful.
All right, Brad Blakeman, David Mercer, good to see you both.
Thanks.
For more on the 2016 presidential race, go to foxnews.com. I'm Greg Jarrett. Thanks for watching.